Hi guys, it's me, Charles HD, and welcome to tonight's stream where, as you can see from the title, we're going to be reviewing some of the key topics from yesterday's 2022 Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. Hopefully you're all doing well after yesterday's race that was decent. It wasn't quite what we were hoping for. Obviously Max Verstappen, who went on to win the Grand Prix, just came through the field way too quickly, to be honest, and it made it just way too easy. Well, not way too easy, but it was way too comfortable the way he came through the field. And it would have been way more exciting that, if he had won the race, it would have been way more exciting if he had only got the lead with a few laps to go, as opposed to being in the lead of the Grand Prix before even half distance in at Spa yesterday. So, yeah, it was a decent race. We had some good overtakes, good battles, a couple moments of note that we'll be talking about this evening. So yeah, that's what we're going to be getting into tonight. And so you guys know what we're getting into tonight officially. Firstly, I will be getting into just why were Red Bull and Max Verstappen so much quicker than Ferrari, not just in qualifying and over the course of the weekend, but most importantly in the race on Sunday. I'm going to get into that as the main topic, and also I'm going to record that part of the stream because I'm going to upload that as a recorded video from the stream for upload tomorrow, so that people who are unable to catch it during the stream can watch it as a smaller recorded video. And then, after that, we're going to get into the Lewis Hamilton Fernando Alonso crash. And I'll get into the analysis of that, looking at Fernando Alonso's on board. And then the final topic will be Charles Leclerc, which won't take very long, but we're going to get into just how his race never really got going at Spa and how it fell apart towards the end, with him finishing P6 behind the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, who finished in P5. And hopefully all you guys are doing well. Hopefully, no matter what time it is in your part of the world or where you're from in the world, hopefully you're having the best day possible you can be having, given whatever circumstances you are going through. And hopefully this evening you will join me in reviewing some of the topics from the race yesterday. And as I talk about the topics I'm going to get into, again, why Verstappen and Red Bull were quicker than Ferrari, the Hamilton-Alonso incident, and looking at Leclerc's race. Make sure, whilst I'm talking about those things, to comment in the live chat your thoughts on these respective topics, and also whether you agree or disagree with any points that I have to make. Let me know, as I said, in the chat whilst I am talking about that. And yeah, in a moment, we will get into the first topic. And as well, another thing I need to say, if my voice sounds a bit stuffy, I do have a cold. I did set the stream up a few hours ago and then had a nap for about 3-4 hours. So yeah, that's probably why my voice is a bit stuffy. And I do tend, right after I get up from having had a nap or slept, I do tend to have a cold. So yeah, you'll have to bear with that, obviously, this evening in this stream. And I'll just quickly cut onto these pictures of, obviously, the Verstappen and Red Bull team from yesterday. And yeah, the first topic we're going to get into is going to be the Red Bull versus Ferrari topic. Before I do, though, let me get into the championship standings from yesterday. Well, not from yesterday, but what the championship standings are now after yesterday's Grand Prix at Spa. So, on the driver's side, Max Verstappen is almost 100 points clear of the man in second, which is Sergio Perez. And Verstappen, I think the earliest he can win the championship is in Singapore, which is in about, 5 weeks from now. I think about 5 weeks, yeah. And yeah, he is looking as though he is going to win the title either in Singapore or in Japan at Suzuka. So not long now until Max Verstappen is crowned world champion for 2022. And obviously Perez, who finished in second yesterday, now up to second in the driver's standings. I think Perez will most likely finish, to be honest, second in the championship because Red Bull are just too quick and Perez is still having a pretty good season. Leclerc drops to third. Carlos Sainz does climb ahead of Russell up to fourth. And then, yeah, Russell only a point behind still, so can still claw that back. Lewis Hamilton remains in P6. Lando Norris is in P7, with Ocon only 12 points behind Norris in 8th. Fernando Alonso now climbs up to 9th after grabbing 10 points for the Alpine team yesterday at Spa. And then Valtteri Bottas still in the top 10 of the championship on 46 points, even though Bottas has not scored a point since the Canadian Grand Prix, which was, 2.5 months ago. So, yeah, still the top 10 of the championship is Valtteri Bottas. And then on the constructor side, Red Bull, way out ahead in the constructor standings. They are 118 points clear of Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Not sure exactly when Red Bull can wrap up the Constructors' title officially. My guess is that if Verstappen wins the title in either Singapore or Suzuka in Japan, that it'll probably be around the same time. So yeah, looking good there for Red Bull. Ferrari in second. And now, 41 points clear of Mercedes. At least they have pulled away from the Mercedes team in that fight for second of the championship, which is still going to, I think, rage on until the end of the season. And then Alpine are now quite comfortably in P4, 20 points clear of McLaren, who are 5th. And then you've got Alfa Romeo in P6, Haas in P7, AlphaTauri 8th. AlphaTauri did score a couple points yesterday. A great drive, I've got to say, for Pierre Gasly, who hasn't really got the credit he deserved for his drive yesterday. Because remember, he started from the pit lane, did Gasly, and I think was last officially when, starting the race. And finished in P9. And then, Aston Martin, still in 9th, but they have closed the gap to AlphaTauri by a couple points. And getting a bit close between Haas, AlphaTauri and Aston Martin. So we'll watch out to see how that fight evolves in the final, 8 races we have in 2022. And I know, the battle for 7th, 8th, 9th of the championship might not seem that important. But to those teams, it is. Because obviously the money you get, the prize money you get, for finishing a couple positions possibly higher if you're Aston Martin in the championship is very important. Even though Aston Martin financially are fine because they're owned by a billionaire, it is still very important and would be very important for the Haas F1 team if they finished in P7 as opposed to P9. So, yeah, it's going to be a very important fight that between Haas, AlphaTauri and Aston Martin. So, yeah. In terms of the championship, pretty much over. I mean, I said after the Canadian Grand Prix that the title was absolutely dead and buried in Max Verstappen's favour, of course. And I thought really after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix that on the constructor side even that Red Bull had things pretty much wrapped up. So, to be honest, I am not massively surprised that they're heading for the championship, given what I thought a few races ago. I am surprised the gap is so big, Max being almost 100 points clear of Perez, given how close things were in the first, or have been so far this season between Red Bull and Ferrari most of the time. I expected it to still be, say if Verstappen was leading the championship, still about 20, 30 points clear, rather than, compared to Leclerc, he's now 98 points clear. That is quite dramatic. Obviously, most of that gap is down to Leclerc being screwed over by his team. Obviously, lost the race win in Spain. Possibly lost the win in Baku as well. And Monaco and Silverstone and Hungary. That's 5 races where Leclerc potentially or probably would have won the Grand Prix, and it just was not to be. So yeah, that's why obviously the gap is so big. And yeah, in just a moment we will get into the topic in terms of just why were Red Bull and Max Verstappen so quick yesterday and just for this weekend compared to Ferrari and even Mercedes. When coming into the weekend, I expected Red Bull to be the quickest team, but I didn't think it would be as dominant in their favour as it was. At times, compared, when you compare Verstappen to Carlos Sainz, which we will get into once I start, getting into the topic itself. At times, Max Verstappen was 2 to 2.5 seconds quicker than Carlos Sainz. So, and I'll just move this picture up a minute, or this bunch of things, because I'm obviously going to get into that in just a moment. Yeah, to be 2 to 2.5 seconds at times quicker than a car that has been really this season of similar pace, if not quicker than the Red Bull at times, or has been quicker than the Red Bull at times, is quite astounding, really. So, yeah, we'll get into that in just a moment. Just quickly, just wiping my nose, because I've got a bit of snot about. But, yeah, when I get into this topic, guys, again, make sure to post in the chat what you think of what I'm having to say, and then I will get into what you guys have to say once I have concluded the topic. And again, a reminder, I'm going to record it, so it'll be uploaded tomorrow on the channel at probably 6 PM UK time. So if you do, for whatever reason, miss any of this, then don't worry, I will be uploading this topic tomorrow. But I think we will just get into it. So here we go. So yesterday, guys, Max Verstappen and Red Bull, or in the Belgian Grand Prix, were so dominant over Ferrari. They were so much quicker than the Ferrari team, at times 2 to 3 seconds a lap quicker. And not just that in the race, but they were way quicker in qualifying as well. So what I'm going to get into in this video is why were Red Bull so much quicker than Ferrari? Because even though I expected Red Bull to be quicker than Ferrari compared to Ferrari here at Spa, I didn't expect it to be such a massive difference between the two teams. So let's get into it. And we'll start by getting into just how qualifying and the race happened, and then we'll get into the respective data in terms of the pace difference, especially in the race between Verstappen and the highest placed Ferrari driver in the Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz. So in qualifying, Max Verstappen, even though he had to start eventually 13th on the grid because of a new ERS and power unit pretty much taken on for the Grand Prix, he finished up in first place, 6.5 tenths of a second, amazingly quicker than Carlos Sainz in what was a massive gap, again, compared to what we expected it to be in qualifying. And starting from 13th, because of just how quick he was in the qualifying session on Saturday, there was a big fear from Ferrari and even quite a big expectation that Max Verstappen was not only still going to compete for the victory on the Sunday, but was probably going to win the race on the Sunday, even though, again, he was starting from P13. So let's now get into just how, in the race, he was able to go from 13th all the way up to first position. So, obviously on the first lap, these two collided, and Lewis Hamilton was put out of the Grand Prix, so that obviously was one position he gained on the first lap. Had a good start and got his way, I think, up to P9 before Lewis Hamilton eventually pulled off the racing line and pulled out of the Grand Prix. And when the safety car came back in, Max Verstappen was in a very good position, because not only was he in 8th place, but because of the safety car obviously closing the pack up, it meant that once he quickly got through the midfield cars, such as I think Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel and the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, he was now not too far off the lead, only about 4 to 5 seconds off the lead, when if there had not been a safety car, may have been a slightly bigger gap. So that definitely did help Max Verstappen, but he still obviously had incredible pace as he found his way up in the top 3 by, I think it was lap 8 or lap 7 of the Grand Prix. And then eventually, once Carlos Sainz, who started on the soft compound tyres, same with Max Verstappen, by the way, who also started on the soft compound tyres. Once Carlos pitted, which was, his first pit stop was a few laps before Max, Verstappen impressively and very quickly disposed of his teammate Sergio Perez, even though Verstappen's tyres were definitely wearing out more so than Perez's, but Max's pace was absolutely incredible compared to Sergio Perez, because once he overtook him, he pulled out, I think, a 3 or 4 second lead over Perez. And once Perez made his pit stop, which was before Max's, Max still came out ahead of Perez when he exited the pit lane from his first pit stop. So incredible pace from the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. But let's just quickly look at what the average lap times were between Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz in that first stint. So in the first stint, the average lap time for Max Verstappen was a 1:53.5. For Carlos Sainz, who led, or in his first stint was leading the race and had no dirty air from any cars ahead, was doing a 1:53.4. Now, even though, yes, Carlos was quicker, very impressive by Max that he was basically on the same pace, despite having to overtake a few cars and run in the dirty air of his teammate for a few laps as well. So Max was, I think, already quite clearly quicker than Carlos by the time, Carlos made his first pit stop, because once Max had cleared a few of the midfield cars, Max was going considerably quicker, even though, again, they started on the same compound of tyre. And really, because of how quickly Max, fought his way up the field, once Verstappen made his pit stop a few laps after Carlos Sainz, sadly for Sainz and Ferrari, it was, quite inevitable that he was going to be overtaken by Verstappen because of the fresher tyres and the pace difference between Verstappen and Sainz yesterday, and just for the weekend in general. You can see here, this is Max, I think, after about a lap and a half after his pit stop, and already was climbing all over the back of the Spaniard, and then he overtook him very easily, as you can see here, into Les Combes, and Carlos Sainz would not see the back of Max Verstappen again until the checkered flag. So, yeah, an incredibly quick move up to first place. I believe this overtake for the lead was made on lap 16, 17, or maybe even lap 18. I can't remember exactly, but again, incredible how quick he was able to get into the lead of the race. Not even, we weren't even at half race distance yet. So, incredible pace there from Verstappen. But let's get into the pace difference between Verstappen and Sainz in the second stint, which is really what lost Ferrari and Carlos Sainz the Grand Prix. And we'll get into, of course, like I did with the first stint, the average lap time difference between Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. And you're going to be amazed by just the pace difference between the two cars. Max Verstappen's average lap time in the second stint was a 1:52.2. Carlos Sainz's average lap time in the second stint was a 1:53.7. Yes, on average in that second stint, Max Verstappen was 1.5 seconds quicker in that stint, and at times on certain laps was 2.5 seconds quicker. I know Max was on fresher tyres, which of course it does give you maybe an extra few tenths of a second, and the Red Bull was quicker. But this type of pace difference between these two cars that have been pretty equal this season should not really be a thing. And it was amazing to see during the Grand Prix, Carlos not only was losing so much time per lap, he was losing, at best, 1 second a lap in the middle sector alone. And we'll get into exactly why that was in a moment with some analysis from Auto, Motor and Sport, a great publication in the Formula One world that analysed just why were Ferrari and Mercedes so much slower compared to Red Bull, why were Red Bull so dominant at Spa. But even, and actually before we get into the third and final stint of the Grand Prix and the difference in average lap time, if we look at Carlos Sainz, again, 153.7 on average for his average lap time in the second stint. In the first stint, he was actually, on average, 0.3 of a second quicker, which doesn't make any sense, because normally in a Grand Prix, with the fuel load coming down, the track rubbering in more, and that means more grip, and with Sainz on the medium tyre for his second stint, which would have had more grip for longer, and I think was just a better tyre yesterday in the Grand Prix than the soft. I think that was pretty clear to see. Carlos should have been going at least half a second quicker on average compared to his first stint, so should have been really in the 152s, but he was, again, 0.3 of a second slower on average than his first stint, showing that the Ferrari was absolutely killing its tyres. Sainz's tyres really were gone after about 4 or 5 laps in that second stint, and even in the final stint, his tyres were pretty finished after a few laps and couldn't really go that much quicker. And let's get into that final stint, just the pace difference between Max and Sainz. So Max Verstappen, he would improve his pace in the third stint. His average lap time was a 151.6. Carlos's pace improved quite a bit, and I think Carlos was on the hard compound tyre, so maybe in hindsight, Ferrari should have gone to the hard compound tyre for his second stint, but even if he did, I don't think it really would have made that big of a difference. And yeah, he was on average in the final stint 0.8 of a second slower than Max Verstappen. The thing is, though, the most insulting thing for Ferrari is that Verstappen, if you go look at the final 10 laps or so of that race, Verstappen wasn't pushing. He was just coasting to the end, just trying to keep the car going, of course, and not have any reliability failures by pushing the car too hard, and was still, on average, 0.8 of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz. And I think the fastest lap difference as well between the Red Bull of Verstappen and the Ferrari of Sainz. I think Verstappen's fastest lap was a 149.3, and Carlos's fastest lap of the entire Grand Prix was a 151.9. That is 2.6 seconds difference. And when Max set his fastest lap of the race, it wasn't like it was on the soft compound tyre at the very end of the Grand Prix just to get the fastest lap. Verstappen was, I think, 2 or 3 laps into a medium compound tyre stint when Carlos was on, I think, the hard compound tyre, I think a few laps into his stint as well. So, just shows you the incredible difference between the two cars yesterday in the Grand Prix. But just why was it so big, this gap? Well, let's get into that analysis by Auto, Motor and Sport, and just looking at why Red Bull was so dominant compared to Ferrari. So this is what their analysis was. It said, quote, Red Bull's exceptional superiority has a lot to do with the circuit, not just because Spa Francorchamps demands more efficiency from the car than any other circuit. You need top speed in sectors 1 and 3. Obviously, we know the Red Bull in a straight line is so quick and was always going to be very quick in those sectors. And downforce in the middle section, it says, with its 10 corners, nobody manages this balancing act better than the Red Bull, because the RB18 generates more downforce via the underbody than any other car in the field, therefore doesn't put as much wing into the wind. They go on to say, but that's only half the benefit. Spa is a special case in terms of the car height due to the compression in Eau Rouge and a nasty bump in the Stavelot corners. In order to alleviate the impact at these points, the teams have to set their cars 5 to 6 millimeters higher than usual. This would have happened, this is very important to remember in terms of the new technical directive, This would have happened, they say, even without the technical directive, which many teams had hoped could become a stumbling block for Red Bull and Ferrari. So if that isn't indeed the case, then we haven't really seen the effects of the technical directive as of yet, and we probably will this weekend in Holland for the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. And then they finally go on to say, in fact, this time the ground clearance had to be increased by a bit more than the engineers had calculated. This was due to the ominous bump between turns 14 and 15, which is, I think that's in between the two Stavolo corners, I'm pretty sure. And then it goes on to say, this put Ferrari and Mercedes in a window in which their aerodynamics no longer delivered the downforce that they were used to. As a consequence, both teams had to trim the chassis harder than usual, which also cost mechanical grip. And that's why, a big reason, I think, why Ferrari were so slow in the middle sector yesterday compared to Red Bull. And then it goes on to say the Red Bull felt comfortable with more ground clearance and therefore also reached its normal form. And credit to Automotor and Sport. A great publication when it comes to Formula One. Probably the best out there, I'd say. So if you are German, you absolutely have to be, reading what they have to say. And even if you're, English speaking or from whatever other country that speaks a different language than German, if you're able to translate their articles into the language you do speak, then make sure to check out their stuff, because their stuff is absolutely top quality. But because, as they say, of the alterations that Ferrari had to make to their car, that's what caused them to be not just in the race, but in qualifying as well, so slow compared to Red Bull in the middle sector, where a lot of us were expecting the Ferrari to really come alive in that middle sector, but it just never happened. And because I think that aerodynamics and mechanical, obviously they didn't have as much mechanical grip as they had previously. That wasn't helping with looking after the tyres also, which is really another reason what hurt Ferrari yesterday. But we also do have to credit Max Verstappen, who put in an amazing drive at Spa, and it was maybe not the best drive of his career because of how easy it was and how quick the Red Bull was, but definitely it was one of his best. We'll see this weekend at his home Grand Prix at Zandvoort whether he can continue this, and it'll be very interesting to see whether Red Bull keep this pace up compared to Ferrari this weekend at Zandvoort. What effect as well the technical directive has, and it should have definitely more of an effect at Zandvoort rather than last weekend at Spa. So we'll see what happens with that, but those are the reasons why Red Bull absolutely destroyed Ferrari during the 2022 Belgian Grand Prix. And there you go, guys. That is the analysis that I had there to deliver for you guys, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. And so Ferrari, as you saw, had to make alterations to their chassis and raise their car even higher than maybe they were hoping, and that's what led to them not looking after their tyres well and just being, in general, compared to Red Bull, aerodynamically poor. And the thing is, because of the bumps at Spa, and Spa is maybe not the bumpiest on the calendar. Well, it's not the bumpiest on the calendar, actually, that's for sure. Baku is probably the absolute worst, or maybe when we get to the Circuit of Americas later in the season, that'll be pretty bad, to be honest. But it is quite a bumpy track. It's quite an old circuit, obviously. It's been around for a very, very long time. But what do you call it? But because Red Bull, as we've seen this season, they don't bounce or porpoise as much as the Ferrari car does, and have a lot more of a comfortable, smoother ride than the Ferrari car. That means when we come to these bumpier tracks, that Red Bull do cope better with those certain elements. So, yeah, it's definitely a factor yesterday. But guys, let me know in the live chat, what did you think of what I had to say and the analysis, and what did you think of yesterday's Grand Prix and just why Red Bull was so much quicker than Ferrari and absolutely annihilated the Ferrari team at Spa? Let me know in the live chat. And, well, before I get into your comments, just want to say, if anyone new is watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, because I'll be live this weekend, obviously, for the Dutch Grand Prix. On Thursday, I'll be live for the Dutch Grand Prix preview show. And then the qualifying preview show will be live on Friday. Both times for those two streams are 6 p.m. UK time on Thursday and Friday, respectively. Then, obviously, I'll be live on qualifying day on Saturday from 11:45 a.m. all the way through till 4:30 or 5 p.m. UK time. From 11:45 till 1 p.m., I'll be doing a watch along for practice 3. Then 1 p.m. till 3 p.m., I'll be live for the build-up to qualifying. 3 till 4 p.m. UK time will be the watch along for qualifying itself, and then I'll react with you guys for at least half an hour to what happened in qualifying. And then on race day, it'll be the same schedule as yesterday as well. I'll be live from 12 p.m. probably all the way through till at least 4:30, if not 5 p.m. UK time. From 12 to 1:30 will be the race preview. 1:30 till 4 p.m. UK time will be the race watch along itself. I'll be the race starting next weekend at 2 p.m. UK time. And then for probably about an hour after the race finishes, I'll react with you guys to what happened in the Grand Prix. So, yeah, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe right there. And for everyone watching right now, if you have not already, don't forget to smash the like button on this stream. And as well, don't forget to share this video and channel everywhere you can. And let me just have a look at something quick. Right. So yeah, let's see what you guys are having to say in the chat. And hello to all of you, by the way. Labgorilla says, hilarious. As I logged into your stream, I got an advert showing Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari overalls. You need to talk about the bloody pit stop they did. Jesus. Don't worry, I will get into that. I am going to get into Leclerc's race. And also, I am going to play the team radio that, instructed him to come in. And thankfully, I have subtitles as well for that. So that if you guys can't quite understand what's being said, that you guys can understand fully what is being said. Triban says, it was a depressing race like Red Bull 1-2. How will there be a Red Bull Verstappen era of dominance? I mean, between now and 2026, yeah, I think there will. I don't think they'll win every championship between now and 2026, but they will win the majority. I think that's pretty... I'm pretty confident with that, because Mercedes... Even though I think they will improve next year, and I think they'll be back to being title contenders next year for sure, Mercedes, I don't think, for at least a few years, will be back to being a dominant front-running team again for a few years. And quite possibly, we will not see the dominance that Mercedes showed in 2020, 2019, and even back in 2014, 15, 16. We're not going to see that type of dominance again for quite a while, if not ever, from them. So, yeah. I think Verstappen and Red Bull are in a great position to dominate Formula 1. One thing I wanted to get into, though, quickly, that I saw a few hours ago, that someone who does work for Automotor and Sport, called Toby Gruner, who I think you guys will know because I've mentioned it before. I want to just quickly show this article that, or just show his, I guess, takeaway or the main headline from this article, because it's very interesting in relation to Red Bull, and I know you guys will be interested in this. Let me just quickly show it. He says, Red Bull, this is new news from, I think this morning, 10:30 in the morning. Red Bull worried Porsche could gain too much influence after taking over 50% of the company. Deal seems to take longer than expected. Red Bull currently considering other options. Time is running out for Porsche due to FIA deadline and IPO. Not sure exactly what IPO means, but they do have to submit their if they're going to enter Formula 1 for 2026 as an engine manufacturer, they do have to formally enter, I think, is it by the end of this year or the end of next year? So, yeah, because, again, Red Bull are worried that Porsche could gain too much influence. Now, it is rumoured that Red Bull are considering other options, and possibly, it's been put out there, the rumour, that Red Bull might just continue with Honda after 2026. We'll see how this develops. Of course, I'll let you know if there's any more developments to that story. But it was rumoured for a while that, Red Bull and Porsche were going to get together and be the new partnership for 2026, but doesn't look as likely at the minute. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll just quickly wipe my nose a minute. And make sure to keep your comments in chat coming, guys. Triband asks, people on this stream, I have a quick question. What is your favourite F1 sponsor of a team, circuit, or whatever? Because of the way it looked on the Ferrari car, I'd have to say Marlboro. Even though, yeah, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I will admit it looked nice on a Ferrari car. Also, the, was it West, who are also a cigarette company, I think, from Germany. They looked pretty nice on the McLaren cars. Labgrid says, I've got a feeling that we're entering an era where Red Bull will have absolute dominance. They've taken a lot of people from Mercedes, and Red Bull has gone into the distance. The thing is, I mean, my prediction is, again, that Verstappen obviously is going to win this year. I do still think that, again, Mercedes will bounce back next year, and I do think Lewis Hamilton will win the championship next year because I think he will eventually end up with his 8th World Championship. But the thing is, the only team, because, the pecking order is what it is at the moment, and this is the first year of these new cars, and the cars are not really going to be any different until 2026. The only team that can stop Red Bull is Mercedes. If Mercedes stay where they are at the minute, if they stay in that position until 2026, then Verstappen will win the championship this year, next year, 2024, 2025. So that would mean that by 2026, when Max was, 29 years old, I think he'd be by then, Max would already be a 5-time world champion, which is a very scary prospect, I have to say. So, Mercedes, and I don't hate Red Bull. Let me just preface what I'm about to say with that. I don't hate Red Bull, but our only hope of competition at the very front is Mercedes, because Ferrari are incompetent. And to be honest, even if Ferrari had like a car that was a second a lap quicker than Red Bull, I'm still not sure they'd win the championship because of that. Pathetic. But, yeah, let's get into your other comments here. Ronan Brady says, hello, Chaz. Hello to Warhawk 777 as well. Jalma, I think it is, says Max has got the car exactly as he wants it right now for Spa. At least he could be gentle on the tyres whilst having the best race pace. Also, how did he not hit anything lap 1? Well, either luck or skill. Probably skill, to be honest. I don't think we actually saw the onboard, or I haven't seen the onboard of his first lap, so I can't really say. I know he passed Leclerc, I think it was, into turn 9, the no-name left-hander. But, yeah. Triband, does anyone think, Verstappen will win nearly all of the remaining races on the calendar? Warhawk responds to that saying not all but most. Mariska says not all but I think the most. I think he'll I think he will win this weekend. I don't really have any doubts about that. Even if Ferrari have a car that's a tad quicker than the Red Bull. And I do think Ferrari will be quicker this weekend than they were at Spa, but I just think Verstappen, home crowd, obviously he'll be super pumped for that, and he'll pull out something extra like he did last year to win the Grand Prix, when I don't actually think the Red Bull was as quick as the Mercedes car last year in the race, but Max is just, he's that great, he can pull out that extra bit of pace that turns out to be the difference between pole position, race win, and not getting those things. So I think Verstappen will win this weekend, and I think he'll win the Italian Grand Prix at Monza as well, because the Red Bull is too quick in a straight line, and I just don't see how Ferrari realistically can win that race. Singapore, I'm going to say no. I don't think he'll win that race because I don't think it will suit the Red Bull as much as, say, Spa, or obviously Monza. And actually, I'm going to go for a Mercedes win in Singapore. I'm going to go Lewis Hamilton to win the Singapore Grand Prix. I don't think Mercedes will be that quick in qualifying at that track, but I think in the race, because of their ability to look after their tyres and have, as great a race pace as they do have, I think Mercedes will be very, very quick in the race there. So I'm going to go a Hamilton win, say in Singapore. And then Verstappen to win at Suzuka. Then Verstappen will probably win the championship with that win. And then the US Grand Prix, I'll go with... Who will I go with? If it's dry, probably Max Verstappen. If it's wet, though, I could see a Leclerc or a Hamilton winning that. So we'll see. And then in Mexico, I'll go Max Verstappen because he, is so quick and dominant around that track. Sao Paulo, yeah, Verstappen. I'd have to go to win that one, and probably Verstappen to win in Abu Dhabi as well. So I think he'll win almost every Grand Prix remaining, but I don't think he'll win absolutely every Grand Prix remaining. Again, I think Singapore and the US Grand Prix, I think, is probably the only ones where he won't win. Or you think, there's more chance that he won't win. But yeah, he will probably, because he's on 9 wins for the season now, he'll probably end the season with 15 wins total. Let's get into some more comments, though, from you guys in the chat. Keep them coming. Red Bull won Max down 4 circuits as well, even though Ferrari should. I mean, yeah, Red Bull obviously won in Monaco, Spain, Paul Ricard, places like that, but I don't think, or maybe in Paul Ricard at the French Grand Prix, I think maybe Red Bull had the pace there to win, but in Spain and Monaco, Ferrari should have won those races quite easily, but, Ferrari are Ferrari, so that's why they didn't end up winning. Labgura says, I think Red Bull has taken a step forward and Ferrari won't be able to beat them again this year. Mariska says, I think the technical director was hit a lot of teams. Well, if that analysis that I read out from Automotive and Sport, if that is correct, then maybe not at the minute, but I think, again, we'll see a lot more this weekend as to the effect it's had, because Zandvoort is bumpy in certain places, but I think is a smoother racetrack than Spa. So, yeah, we'll see. I think a lot more this weekend about how the technical director was affecting things. Triban says Ferrari have thrown away potential victories at circuits where they have a clear advantage, and now that we are going into general powerhouse circuits, Ferrari are going to struggle tremendously. And I do realise, by the way, that I predicted Ferrari not to win another Grand Prix. Maybe, like I said, they'll win the US Grand Prix. Maybe they could win in Singapore. But ultimately, I don't think they'll actually win a Grand Prix remaining this season. And honestly, next season, if Red Bull can keep this type of advantage they had at Spa for next season, and Mercedes improve a lot and become title contenders, then Ferrari will probably be back to where they were in 2021, which is probably at best the 3rd fastest team, but quite a bit away from the 2 top teams. So if you're a Ferrari fan, between now and maybe 2024, I would save every race win you have, because not many are going to come around, I don't think. Warhawk says Red Bull car is 40% better than all other cars combined with Max. They're in a different league. Triban says F1 2023 is going to be more depressing, I think. I predict Verstappen era of domination. Lewis Hamilton will unfortunately not get his 8th title. Hopefully this doesn't happen. Effectively, in terms of what I think is going to happen next year, I think it will be, in terms of the title fight, I think it will be a repeat of 2021, except Lewis Hamilton will win the championship instead of Max Verstappen. And then Ferrari, like I said, they'll probably still be a front-running team, but they just won't be anywhere near as competitive compared to Red Bull and Mercedes as they have been this season. They'll probably still win a couple races, but they won't be in title contention at all. And then, what do you call it? And then McLaren, Alpine will probably improve a bit and close the gap, I think, to the front 3 teams. I mean, they still won't be really competitive massively with those 3 teams, but they will close the gap. So, yeah, that's what I expect to happen next season. Mika says the that FIA technical directive makes things worse. People trying to hide their heads in the sand. Verstappen is the new Vettel and could win every race till Abu Dhabi, for fuck's sake. Yep, quite possible that Verstappen could go on such a deep run. Triban says Ferrari should be on par, slightly faster than Red Bull and Zandvoort. Theoretically, yes, but again, we'll see whether the problems they suffered at Spa happen again at Zandvoort, and whether, you know, the technical directive being a lot more it'll play more of a role this weekend than it, you know, did at Spa. We'll see if Ferrari do actually have a competitive car. And also says I think Mercedes should be a bit more closer, so more interesting race. Let's say the technical directive does affect Red Bull and Ferrari a bit more, and Mercedes are brought closer because of that, then yeah, I think Mercedes could have a pretty good weekend, better certainly than Spa. I mean, the lap times, not the lap times, but the lap is a lot shorter at Zandvoort than it is at Spa by, I think, about 30 seconds. So Mercedes will be closer to the front no matter what, because of the closer, you know, how close the grid is on lap time because of the shorter laps. So with that, plus probably going better at Zandvoort because the track layout, I think, will suit them better, and possibly higher temperatures if it is, well, if it's similar to last year's race where we saw a very hot and sunny weekend, then yeah, I think Mercedes could have a pretty decent weekend. Possibility of rain at Zandvoort, well, that definitely help probably Ferrari. Then again, Max Verstappen is an incredibly good wet weather driver. Mika says Red Bull bringing a chassis upgrade to Marina Bay. Yeah, if you guys don't know about that, I don't think I'm gonna get it up on screen because it'd probably take me too long to find it. But Red Bull are bringing a lighter, is it monocoque? I think it is chassis monocoque to the Singapore Grand Prix, and it's reportedly worth, or going to be worth, about 0.3 of a second gain for Red Bull. So if that is true, then yeah, Red Bull absolutely smash the final 8 races of the season. I've got to say, with it still being August, it is amazing to say that there's only 8 races to go. Because it, you know, normally when we get to this point, there's still, say, 10 races left. Or at least quite a while until the actual season finishes. Obviously, last year the season finished at the middle of December. And this year finishes the middle of November, the same day the World Cup starts in Qatar. So, yeah, not long until the season's actually over. I think the season finishes in 2.5 months from now, which is, it sounds a lot, but not a long time. I mean, we'll be in Singapore and Japan in no time. Sparky Pete says, let me just find that comment. I've just scrolled past it. Sparky Pete, good to see you, by the way. Says the Red Bull looked like the best F1 car yesterday, to be honest. Well, what you saw yesterday was basically what it was like back in the day with, was it the Williams back in the early 90s, the 92 Williams? Because the Williams that year was like, at times 2 or 3 seconds a lap quicker than the rest of the pack, or even the McLaren of 1988. It was similar to those type of cars in terms of the difference in pace. And yeah, Carlos Sainz, like I showed you, in the second stint at the Grand Prix, was a 1.5 seconds slower per lap. And that was the closest car on pace to Red Bull yesterday for the majority of the race. I know Russell in the Mercedes was lapping a bit quicker in the second stint than Sainz, and in the final stint at times, but I think for the majority of the Grand Prix, I think the Ferrari car was the closest to the Mercedes. Josiah says, it wasn't last year, so why would it this year? Not sure what you're referencing there completely. Peter Van Breda says, nope, Alonso for World Champion 2024. Well, that would be incredible if Aston Martin turned around that quickly, but I don't think they will, Aston Martin. Sparky Pete says, looks like Red Bull is taking on the evil empire role that Mercedes had in the public for years with their success and people hating. Hello, by the way, to Francisco. Good to see you. Obviously, long-time subscriber and viewer of the channel. Good to see you, mate. Marco Catania asks, if a fully new team joins F1 in 2026, do you worry they'll end up like a HRT or Super Aguri? Personally, only want a team who can compete from the off. No. The reason is because the FIA now have a rule that if you enter Formula 1 as a team, you have to, I think, pay up, was it 200 million euros up front? Basically proof of funds. So that we don't have teams like HRT in F1 that come in and do nothing and then go bankrupt about 2 years in. It looks as though at the minute, because Audi, obviously, they've announced that they're going to be a power unit manufacturer in F1 for 2026, not an F1 team fully. Porsche are probably going to be a manufacturer as well. The only new team that could join for 2026 is probably Andretti. And Andretti will not come in just to make up the numbers because they're a proper racing team. They've been a team for, decades? And yeah, they're not going to come in to make up the numbers. They're going to actually go for it. And to be honest, if I was Andretti, because obviously there's a bit of controversy over Andretti's entry to F1, because Andretti are campaigning to enter F1 for 2024 with Renault power units that they reportedly have struck a deal for with Renault or Alpine, whatever you want to call them. Strategically, it'd probably be best if they secured a deal with Audi, because Audi are entering F1 anyway, and obviously F1 desperately has wanted Audi to enter Formula 1. So if they struck a deal, then it would benefit probably Formula 1 a lot more, and they'd probably have a better chance of getting into Formula 1 in that way. Robin Vissers, it says, which Hamilton, you don't mean Lewis, I assume? No, I do think Mercedes will get a win before the end of the season, because I do think still there is the potential to get a win this season for them. And I think Singapore, even though I don't think they'll be that quick there in qualifying, and they've never really been that quick in qualifying this season, even though, yeah, they had pole at Hungary. I don't think they'll be that quick there. But I think in the race, because they can look after their tyres so well, and their race pace in general is so much better, and their qualifying pace, I think at Singapore, I think they'll be very, very competitive. Naughty Hill says, "Hey Chazza, wouldn't it be fun after Max wins the championship? He will start each race from the back just for shits and giggles." Well, obviously they're not going to do that, but if he did, just to have a laugh, then he would probably still win a couple races if they had the type of pace advantage that they had yesterday. I mean, if he started from the back of the race or back of the grid in Singapore, I don't think he would have won the race or would win the race there, because it is still going to be this year, even though the cars can follow a lot better, it's still going to be way too hard to overtake because Singapore is so tight, so many corners, and it's hard enough to drive the track anyway on your own, never mind to overtake someone as well. So, plus they've not raced around Singapore for 3 years, so take a slight bit of time getting used to the track again in much different cars compared to 2019. Francisco says Ferrari to win WEC next season. Well, it's probably the only chance of a world champion. Or of a world championship, sorry, not a world champion. And right, we'll read out these final comments, and then I think I'll get into the next topic, which is going to be me reviewing the Lewis Hamilton Fernando Alonso incident. So make sure to stick around for that, guys. Josiah says, "I'm just going to say it. I hate Red Bull. I hate their efficiency. I hate their bosses and everything they stand for." Well, at least you're honest. Francisco says, "Interesting stat. Leclerc only finished ahead of Sainz once in the last 9 races." Yeah, just proof that he's had such a bad time. Also, I think I've had it actually showing on the bottom of the screen on my bottom ticker. Charles Leclerc, so there's been 14 races this season. How many times would you guess he's been on the podium? For someone who was supposed to be a title contender. The amount of times he's been on the podium, just to answer that, is out of 14 races, he has only had 5 podiums in 14 races. Yet, how many times has he been on pole position? Is it 7 times this season? 8 times? Something like that? It's like... it's incredible. I don't think we've ever seen that before, where a front-running... a driver in a front-running team has only finished on the podium that few times in a 14-15 race span. Let me just look, see what you guys are saying in chat quick. Mariska, what's your point on Andretti entering? Well, I pretty much gave it. So not sure what you mean. I mean, Andretti entering F1, I think everyone would benefit eventually from that. I mean, yeah, I know the teams don't want it because they'll get less of the pot, if you know what I mean by that. Less of the prize money, because they'll have to shared out. Shared out to another team. But it will benefit F1 in the long term. Obviously, another American team, and I think they have the potential probably to be better than Haas have been in Formula 1. So, yeah, don't see how really it's a problem. And obviously, 2 more cars on the grid, meaning that there'll be more opportunities for drivers on the grid. Out there, say an F2, F3 that want to get onto the grid. Doing something on Twitter. A sec. And by the way, I did just see something on Twitter. Let me just find it. Where is it? There it is. I'm not going to read the article, but I will. Show the tweet, which basically is, getting into what the main headline is. You guys will be very interested to hear this in relation to the McLaren Alpine situation, but most importantly for Alpine. By the way, the contract recognition board met today for the to rule on the case. I don't think there'll be a resolution today, but yeah, they're ruling over whether Alpine have a legitimate say in the contract dispute between Alpine and Oscar Piastri. But let me just get onto this quick. So, and I saw this report earlier from another publication, or F1 journalist, I think it was. Pierre Gasly is reportedly Alpine's main priority for 2023. Alpine could use any financial compensation from the Piastri saga to secure Gasly's services and break him free from his AlphaTauri contract. I did see a report yesterday that, yeah, Alpine, their main aim in terms of replacing Alonso is Pierre Gasly for next year. And, yeah, Alpine are willing to pay for Gasly's, or to pay AlphaTauri so that Gasly can come to them next year, because Gasly does actually have a contract to race at AlphaTauri next year, so they would have to do that deal. And then it's reported, not confirmed, and I'd say the best publications out there haven't really reported this story heavily as of yet, but apparently Helmut Marko wants to replace Pierre Gasly with Colton Herta, who is a driver in their Red Bull ranks. Who is he in IndyCar? I'll have a look in a minute. Let me just cut back to these pictures and see what Colton Herta is doing. Colton Herta, by the way, is American. He's he's currently in IndyCar, and funnily enough, he's racing for Andretti. And his best ever finish in hold on, let me actually look quickly. Oh no, that's his best finish for the championship. For I was just looking on Wikipedia. He has had in IndyCar. Let me look. He's had, I think, yeah. Sorry, he's had 7 race wins, 11 podiums, and 9 pole positions in IndyCar, and he's only 22 years old. He did race in Euro Formula. He also raced in, was it Super Formula, the Japanese series, a few years ago? Was that someone else? Can't remember. But yeah, he has raced in IndyCar for the I think since 2020, and he did finish 3rd in the championship in 2020. And also raced in Indy Lights, Spanish Formula 3, where he finished 2nd in the championship. So yeah, he's a driver with quality, that is for sure. Can he succeed in Formula 1? I'm not quite sure he can, because I don't think he is, from what I've heard or seen of his results so far, I'm not quite sure he has the ability to properly succeed in F1, but I could always be proven wrong, so we'll see with that. Let me find some other comments here quick. I'm sad BMW Sauber will not return anytime soon, says Warhawk. Yeah, BMW could enter Formula 1 in a few years, though, with the electric element in the power units becoming a lot more prevalent. I think we could see BMW possibly come back into F1, which would be good. But I mean, to be honest, if we get Porsche as well, along with Audi, to have Mercedes, Ferrari, Renault, Porsche, Audi, and possibly Honda in F1 in 2026, that would be pretty great, considering if you go back to 2014, 8 years ago, at the very start of the V6 hybrid era, we only had Mercedes, Ferrari, Renault. That was it. So to go from that to 12 years later, possibly 6 engine manufacturers would be brilliant, to be honest. Sparky Pete says, that Andretti and Audi thing you said is great. I wish you had Andretti's cell number. Someone got to tell him. Lol, really though, Audi is a big name here in the USA. Known way more than Renault. And Naughty Hill says, Audi is your go-to drug dealer car. Surely they'll have the speed. And also DJ Burp says, hit the like button. Hope F1 doing great this bank holiday. Yeah, hope you're all doing well. And yeah, as he said, don't forget to smash the like button if you haven't already on this stream. But I think we're going to get into the rest of the stream and we'll go into our next topic. So let's get into this incident between not Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, where they made contact at turn 5, Leclerc, sent Lewis Hamilton, as you can see, quite high into the air. And then eventually Hamilton had to retire from the race because of damage sustained to the side pod or rear end of his car. But let's get into just why Fernando Alonso was totally blameless in this incident and why Lewis Hamilton was absolutely at fault. You can see here, they're side by side. Obviously, we're on board with Alonso. And Hamilton, at this point, he's going to do what a lot of drivers, or he's going to at least attempt to do, what a lot of drivers try to do at this corner, which is sail around the outside to have the inside for turn 6. And normally, that move does work. And as we come onto this picture, if Lewis Hamilton had stayed in terms of the amount of room he's leaving for Alonso, if he had stayed at this type of point going through the corner, they would have made it through just fine. But of course, that is not what happened. As here you can see, this is when Hamilton starts to come over and start squeezing Alonso. You can see with Alonso's steering wheel there, he's starting to turn right more because you can see, and he realises, he recognises that Lewis Hamilton is coming across on him. So he's trying to protect himself from that. And as we get to this picture, Fernando Alonso still turning right into, obviously it is a right-hander, but he is way too much on the curb here for what you'd normally want to be. And you can see with his front right tyre, he is as far over to the right-hand side as you could possibly be. He can't give Lewis Hamilton any more room here than he can, unless obviously he went into the gravel, but that is not really an option, is it? But then you can see that at this point, I believe it is, Fernando Alonso, let me actually just check to see. Oh no, it's not quite at this point, but at this point, Alonso, he's not quite as much on the curb as he was, or as far over to the right-hand side as he was. Maybe slightly to the left compared to where he was. But at this point, where can Fernando Alonso go? Lewis Hamilton is squeezing him to the point where it's almost as though Hamilton's driving this corner as though Fernando is not there. And there's really, at this point, no chance of contact not happening here. And as we can see here, so, oh yeah, this is what I wanted to show. So you can see here Alonso still turning right to try and make him, to bring himself across as much as possible to avoid contact. But then, because he's on this curb, which you're not supposed to be on really for this corner, it's not the fastest way through the corner, that then creates a bit of oversteer. And as you can see with his steering wheel, if I just scroll it up slightly, you can kind of see he turns the other way because he gets a bit of oversteer from being on that curb so much. And then that is what causes the contact to be made. But the reason he was over so much on that curb is, as I showed, because Lewis has squeezed him as far to the right-hand side of the track as you can possibly do. And then, of course, that is what created the contact. And Lewis Hamilton, like I said, was out of the Grand Prix after that. Fernando Alonso thankfully continued, luckily continued. I was very surprised he didn't have any damage to his front left suspension there, and finished in 5th place. Great drive by him. Obviously, would go on to say, or criticise Hamilton, saying he only knows how to drive in 1st place, which obviously is incorrect. Lewis is, a great driver, great overtaker, great racer. He does make mistakes still. He's not a perfect human being, but with Hamilton, it does tend to only be 1 or 2 mistakes per season, compared to, say, 5 or 6 at least per season that you see from Charles Leclerc, or a driver like Charles Leclerc. So, yeah, Alonso maybe right to criticise Hamilton, but I'm not sure that comment was really correct. Obviously, Hamilton wasn't feeling great after obviously retiring from the race, and didn't feel great after what Alonso said. Hopefully they can patch things up, because to be honest, considering they're a lot older than they were back in 2007, where funnily enough that weekend at Spa in 2007 when they were teammates with the McLaren, they also started in the same positions on the grid, 3rd and 4th, and they almost hit each other into Eau Rouge in that race. There was actually, I think, a clip of the start of that race on YouTube, or you can go back and watch the full race if you want. And yeah, they almost made contact that day, and well, they made contact yesterday, and maybe fulfilled what happened, you know, in an alternate universe back in 2007. But one thing I do want to clear up quick is there were some Hamilton fans that I saw who were like, well, how come Hamilton's at fault for this incident, but Max Verstappen wasn't at fault for the incident with Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone? I'm going to quickly just explain why, just to prove or disprove this argument. So, as you can see here, this is maybe a second before contact is made. Lewis Hamilton is on the inside of the corner, but he's not as far to the inside as possible. As you can see, the curb on the right-hand side, he is not quite that close to it, really. And should have been quite a bit further over if they were going to get through this corner without contact being made. When if we look at Fernando Alonso at this point, or even this point, he can't go any further to the right. And obviously this corner is a lot tighter, yes, than the Copse corner at Silverstone. But the reason Alonso is not at fault here is because there's nothing else he can do. And Lewis Hamilton just simply hasn't given him the room. When with Hamilton and Verstappen, Hamilton, again, not as far to the apex or the inside of the corner as he could have gone, meaning that he could have avoided this crash. And if you go back and look at the incident, quite simply, he, because of him being on the dirtier side of the track, just understeered into Verstappen and caused that massive crash that day. So, yeah, just want to prove that, you know, that's not really the case. Even though Hamilton was at fault yesterday for this collision, that doesn't mean Verstappen was at fault for this one, because they are completely different incidents. And Hamilton's position of his car was not, you know, the position of Hamilton's car was not at the same point compared to Fernando. Lewis wasn't, you know, as far to the inside as he possibly could have been. If Lewis was in this incident, right on the curb here, and Verstappen still made contact, and I think we would probably say Max, you know, was the aggressor, the instigator, whatever you want to call that, and the person at fault. But that was not the case, in my opinion. And in my opinion, Lewis Hamilton was at fault for both of these incidents. But guys, let me know in the chat, what did you think of the incident? Who was at fault? Do you think it was Alonso or Hamilton? I mean, most of you, I think, are probably going to say Hamilton. And just let me know your thoughts when it comes to this incident. Nib, good to see you, mate. As says, now clearly Max's aura forced Lewis wide, and it was Max's fault. Oh dear. Let's find some other comments here in chat. Francisco says, tough to judge when the priority to the racing line is equal. A racing incident is probably fair. Triban says, not you, even as a Hamilton fan, the fanboys will realise Hamilton was at fault here. There was plenty of Hamilton fans that did say, yeah, Lewis was at fault here, but I did see the argument presented by a few people, so I just wanted to, you know, disprove, you know, that argument. Naughty Hill says, I have the feeling that Lewis has just given up on this season, which might take away a bit of his awareness in the race due to lack of concentration. I wouldn't say that's him giving up, but maybe just is taking more risks than he would be if he was in a title fight. I think that's possible. But yeah, again, Lewis is human. He does make mistakes. He made a couple last year, even though he's still, you know, performing at a incredibly high level. And I still think this season he's been performing at a very high level. But again, mistakes do happen, even from the very best. At least he admitted his fault, says Warhawk. Yeah, that was good to see. He admitted he was at fault. Ronan Brady says Hamilton fans live on Mars. Chaz has some of the BBC comments section saying Max is average. Yeah. Well, ever since not just Abu Dhabi 2021, but the 2021 season, Lewis fans are always going to hate Max Verstappen. There is no doubt about it. And they're both, those fan bases, they're both never going to give credit to the driver on the opposite side. Verstappen fans are, I think most Verstappen fans are probably always going to say Lewis wasn't as great as he was, and it was because he had a dominant car, and then vice versa probably for the Hamilton fans towards Verstappen, when they both need to just admit that both drivers are incredibly good or even great drivers. And that, yes, yes, Verstappen, I wouldn't say Verstappen's had a dominant car yet. I know yesterday the Red Bull car was clearly much faster than the Ferrari, but I don't think this year you can say Red Bull have had a car miles quicker than the rest of the pack. And I don't think Max has had that yet. So, that's, I think, a plus on Max Verstappen's side. But even with Lewis Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton has had a dominant car for a few years in his career. There is no doubt about that. But that does not take away from his achievements. Best drivers are always going to race for the best teams. That is a fact. You're not going to see Lewis Hamilton just racing for Alpine or AlphaTauri for the sake of it. The best drivers race for the best teams, unless you're like Fernando Alonso and you've already had your chance with the top teams and you're too radioactive at this point to race for one of the top teams. Or you're like Sebastian Vettel, that is, I guess you could say, probably past his prime. Still, performing at a very high level. Obviously, yesterday he did great and ended up finishing in P8. But the best drivers are, racing the best cars, and I don't think just because Hamilton was in the best car in, say, 2014, 15, 16, 17. 19 and 2020. Just because that was the case does not mean Lewis's achievements don't mean anything. Now check Leclerc's overtake on Hamilton at Cops this year. So Silvio Tavares. Well, it was a great overtake, but I don't really see the point in doing so. Triban says Hamilton just needs to strike back at Zandvoort with an incompetent Ferrari. He's got plenty of chances. True. I will say with Hamilton, I thought he drove pretty well last year at Zandvoort, but again, Verstappen was just too good in front of his home crowd. I think it's easy to judge, but these guys barely have any time to think what to do. They need to act within less than seconds. That is true. It is impressive, to be honest, that they can drive so well and avoid crashes a lot of the time with the amount of time they don't have to react. But still, Lewis Hamilton, obviously, a great racing driver. For me, the best racing driver of all time. And, he'll be used to that. So, yeah. Triban says, as someone living in the UK, our country F1 fan base absolutely despise Verstappen, which I think is just pathetic and embarrassing. It's the same, really, that we had for, or that the British crowd has had for Fernando Alonso for a bit, and especially for Michael Schumacher, and even Sebastian Vettel for years. But Michael Schumacher was one especially where, I know obviously Michael crashed into Damon Hill in Adelaide in 94, which, I mean, did he do it on purpose? Yeah, probably. Maybe not crashed on purpose, but he definitely closed the door on purpose, hoping for an accident. And yeah, had a couple incidents with Hill, but Michael, was an amazingly great driver. And I think eventually he did get the respect he deserved, but it took a while. Ronan Brady says, I think Alonso was right about Hamilton not knowing how to drive from anywhere but first, but I think Hamilton is not really that motivated unless he is in a winning car, and that's the reason. No, I think Hamilton, I don't think that comment was correct from Fernando. Because, I mean, look at last year. Lewis wasn't on pole position that many times last year and was still pretty great. So, that's not necessarily true. I mean, maybe, yeah, doesn't have the experience of racing in the midfield, I guess you could say, as much as Fernando does, but yeah. Ronan Brady says also 2021 Shazza, he had the best car. Who are you talking about there? You talking about Hamilton or Verstappen? I'm guessing Verstappen. And to which I would probably say yes, but it wasn't, you know, half a second a lap quicker than the Mercedes car over the course of the season or anything like that. It was ebbing and flowing, as I like to say, as the season went on. So, Eric says, could Lewis Hamilton be entering the point that Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso have both been at as world champions more than once, but now they get the occasional podium? May his glory days be over? Again, I think if what I believe will happen next year does happen, that Mercedes will be back to being title contenders next season, I think Hamilton will be back with a real vengeance next season, and I think we will see greatness once again with Lewis Hamilton. But if Mercedes stay where they are at the minute for the next few years and Hamilton retires in a couple of years' time, then yeah, I think we could see Hamilton, I mean, maybe still getting podiums, but just not being, just not finishing up in first and second as much as he used to, which is obviously mostly down to the car. Luca F1 says, I feel like the top three will stay at Senna, Schumacher, and Hamilton in F1 all time. Well, my top three is Hamilton first, and then Senna second, Schumacher third. The only driver that can break into that top three that I can see at the minute is Max Verstappen. Obviously, we don't know about future drivers that possibly haven't even been born yet, or still in karting, and they're like 12, 13 years old. There is one kid though called what's his name? Andrea Kimi Antonelli. If you guys haven't heard of him, or the young kid, then don't worry, you are gonna hear a lot about this kid, because yeah, he's just turned 16, I think, this weekend, and he is annihilating the entire field in Italian F4. Let me just get it up quickly. And the reason I want to bring this kid up is because he's actually he's part of the Mercedes Driver Academy, and he probably is, if he keeps up his form in Italian F4 through his junior Formula career and possibly even into F1, then this kid is probably going to be Lewis Hamilton's long-time successor at Mercedes. So let me just quickly show this on screen. So this is Kimi Antonelli's finishes in Italian F1 this year. First, fourth, 10th, first, second, first, second, first. Now, you may think, oh, what is Italian F4? A lot of very good drivers come from that series. Obviously, a lot of the Italian or even French or German drivers come from Italian F4. And again, most of the season so far, he's only been 15 years old. He's only just turned 16, and there's only about 3 or 4 race weekends left in Italian F4. And he's probably going to be in FIA Formula 3 next season, I'd imagine. I don't see how he can't be on the grid for Formula 3 next season. He's way too good. Even though, yes, he's only 16, I don't see how he could not be on the grid for Formula 3 next year. So yeah, remember the name, Kimi Antonelli, because he is going to be, I'm pretty sure he's going to be an F1 driver in probably 3 or 4 years from now. And again, he could very well be Lewis Hamilton's long-time successor at the Mercedes team. Didn't the real Kimi have a big crash in NASCAR? Yeah, he had a bit of a crash in NASCAR, which is a shame because he was running in the top 10 in that NASCAR race at Watkins Glen. But yeah, I think I'm going to move on to the final topic here, which is Charles Leclerc, the most cursed driver in Formula One and possibly in motorsport at the moment. He is just absolutely cursed to death and had another cursed Grand Prix yesterday. So let's just quickly get into why this was. And I'm just going to quickly find the tweet showing the first problem that happened for him in the race. So you may have heard that not Max Verstappen, that Charles Leclerc had a front right tyre was smoking and he had to come in for an early pit stop during the safety car period. This was not because of a problem just with the car in general. This was caused by a tear-off that from the visor being stuck in the front right, I think, brake duct, I think it was. And I think we have found, quite possibly, the culprit for that front right brake duct. Let's get into it. Here you go. Here is something that Tammy posted and other people have noticed as well. So this is, I think, towards the end of the first lap. You can see here Verstappen, who is ahead of Leclerc on track, I think only one position ahead. You can see here his arm, I think his left arm, is just pulling he's pulled the tear off the visor and he's now about to let go of it. And obviously, the reason they do this, let go of the tear off at this position of the cockpit is so it doesn't get in the airbox. Because if it does of their own car, then it'll overheat the car and they'll be out of the race. So he let goes of it. But look who's right behind him. Charles Leclerc. And I think if you see this little white thing here in between, between Verstappen and Leclerc, I think that might possibly be the tear-off flying towards Charles Leclerc's front right brake duct. So it does look as though Max Verstappen and his tear-off that he, tore off and then threw away caused Leclerc's problem here. Then Leclerc had to pit. Again, this is such an unlucky thing. This is so rare if this actually was, the tear-off that caused Leclerc's problem. That is such a rare thing to happen. It is, I don't think Verstappen could do that with about 200 or 300 more goes, to be honest. So yeah, incredible that happened for Leclerc. But once he got going, made his way through the pack, got up to P6, but P5 actually, sorry, because obviously Hamilton was out of the race. But because of that tear-off issue and the extra pit stop, he was now miles behind the top four and was going to finish in 4th place. But then Ferrari decided they were going to pit him for a fastest lap attempt. And this is how the radio translation, or the radio conversation went between Leclerc and his engineer. So I'm going to play this now.
So at the moment, fastest lap is Verstappen 49.3. And 3 laps to go. Sainz lap time 52.6, Russell 52.4. So if we stop now, we'll be 1 second ahead of Alonso. That will be to attempt for a fastest lap. So box this lap. Pit confirmed.
I will not risk it this time. But up to you if you really want to try it, but I will not risk it.
So box now, box.
So I'm hoping you guys heard that just about, or well enough. So you heard him say, we're going to go for a fastest lap point. We'll probably come out a second ahead of Alonso, even though they didn't actually come out a second ahead. They came out only just ahead of Alonso. And then Alonso actually overtook Leclerc, kept the position until the beginning of the final lap, which again was not good there for Leclerc. But you heard Leclerc say, I would not risk it. I don't think it's worth it. But, if you want to, then yeah. But he said, I don't think there is really any point taking the risk. And to be honest, obviously with the fastest lap point, in a championship battle, it is important, those fastest lap points, because if you get, 10 fastest lap points in a season, that's 10 points that might win you the World Championship. The championship is over. Charles Leclerc is not going to win the title this season. He'll do well, given how his team continuously fucks him over. He'll do well to finish second in the championship. So what is the point of going for an extra point? I don't see what the point is. Yes, he gets an extra point. So what? He's still going to finish, lower than first, not going to win the World Championship. Who gives a fuck whether he gets the fastest lap point? Nobody cares. But no, Ferrari decided to pit him, and then he did eventually overtake Alonso. The funny thing was, though, his final lap, his fastest lap attempt, was 0.6 of a second slower than Max Verstappen's fastest lap, which is why Max kept the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Even though Leclerc was on fresh, soft compound tyres, and Max was on, slightly worn medium compound tyres, yet was still 0.6 of a second quicker than Leclerc. But then, right after the race, Leclerc was given a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and he sped, guys. Well, actually, let me just wait a second. Let me just get it up on screen. Have a guess. If you don't know, obviously, have a guess just how much he was speeding in the pit lane. As I get it up on the screen. Just have a guess how far over the speed limit he was. As Francisco says in chat, Chaz at the point Ferrari was looking forward to stay ahead of Mercedes, not to chase Max. Even if they finish behind Mercedes, I mean, who cares? Ferrari still haven't won the championship. Ferrari are supposed to be, title winners, title contenders. Who cares about an extra point at the end of the day if it's not, going towards an actual world championship effort? But I hope you guys have guessed, how far over the speed limit did Leclerc go? Well, let me just show. Here we go. So, the FIA revealed how much Leclerc was speeding in the pits. He was 1 kilometre an hour over the speed limit. Just his luck that he would be 1 kilometre an hour over the speed limit. And the reason he sped in the pit lane was because one of the Ferrari sensors was not working because of that front right brake issue, because of the tear-off overheating that part of the car. So it wasn't working, therefore that's what caused him to speed in the pit lane. But let me just quickly, show Charles Leclerc's tweet after the race, which was quite sarcastic, and to be honest, I don't blame him for being sarcastic, because the only way really he'll be able to deal with his, his current predicament. This is what he had to say about his Grand Prix. P9 in lap 1, then tear off in the brakes that causes front right brake overheating. Have to stop to take off the tear off the brakes. Come back to P5. Took a 5-second penalty for being too quick in the pit lane because of a burnt sensor caused by the first issue. Beautiful day. It's a shame that it's got to this point with Leclerc, but again, he has to try and cope as hard as he can with just how this season is going. But yeah, Leclerc, like I said, he is the cursed one in Formula 1. And I don't see this really getting any better for him between now and the end of the season. And to be honest, I think this will just continue for Leclerc at Ferrari until he leaves the team, which I hope will be the end of 2024, because he cannot stay with this team if he wants to win a world championship, because that's never going to happen. But let me read out some final comments from you guys in the chat. Francisco says Leclerc needs to learn with his teammate in terms of radio communications. Naughty Hill says Leclerc was right. He needs to be more assertive. Francisco says it's to keep second in the constructors. I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but if Mercedes dropped, if Ferrari dropped to third, I mean, will it really make a difference? I mean, to be fair, it would probably, because Ferrari are not going to win the title, it actually would be better if Ferrari dropped to third, because if you finish lower in the championship, you'll get more development time next season. So they should probably deliberately finish third, unless that's actually what they're doing, which would be controversial to say the least. Leclerc to Merc 2025, says Doob. Yeah, that is my big hope, is that that's what's going to happen, that Leclerc's going to go to Mercedes for 2025. Really hoping that does happen, because I would be so sad for Charles if he had to stay at this team until like the end of this decade, when he would probably have his best years wasted, or a lot of his good years wasted. And to be honest, I think unless another team in the field becomes a front-running team, I think Mercedes is the only option for Leclerc to move, to another team from Ferrari. Because obviously Red Bull are not going to have him, because that is Max's team. And if Lewis retires, before the 2025 season, then I think Leclerc definitely has got to try and go for a move there, because he is not going to win a championship at Ferrari. Elio, I think it is, says, I heard in the interview that Max couldn't see from all the chaos ahead of him with the Stroll going into the gravel, and he teared off the visor to see better. Yeah, he did say that. It's because he said there was so much dirt that he couldn't see anything. So he was right in, obviously, tearing off his visor, the tear off of his visor, but was just very unlucky that it went where it went. Leclerc-Russell lineup sounds pretty OP. Yeah, that would be a very good lineup for Mercedes to have. And I know I just went on about how that kid, Kimi Antonelli, is probably the future of the Mercedes team, or one of the main bits of, future for them in terms of the driver's side. Obviously, Russell would have to be a part of that as well. Charles Leclerc, I mean, if Lewis Hamilton was to retire at the end of next season, which I do think he will, my prediction, again, is that Hamilton will win the championship and he'll retire from F1, because he would have reached the absolute pinnacle then, if he wins his 8th title, because that'll be not only, does he have most wins, most poles and all of that, but he'll have the most F1 World Championships as well. And if Mercedes, if they're looking to replace Hamilton, they need to replace him with someone who is as close to Lewis as they can find. And the closest person I can find is Charles Leclerc. He has the pace that is, as close to what we have seen from Hamilton in the last, 3-4 years. I mean, you could argue Lando Norris, and you could definitely argue that Lando Norris is more consistent than Leclerc, but in terms of raw pace and talent, I think Leclerc is the closest to Hamilton that Mercedes could probably go after in replacing Hamilton. They're not going to go after Verstappen, because Max is contracted to Red Bull until the end of 2028. Eric says, or asks, is it also possible Lewis stays in F1 but just doesn't do as well anymore and is dropped by Merc and goes to one of the less successful teams? No, that's never going to happen. Lewis is never going to leave Mercedes. He will retire a Mercedes driver. I think that is for sure. But guys, I think I'm going to bring the stream to an end, because I have been live for an hour and 45 minutes almost, and I've pretty much covered all the stuff that I wanted to get into. Thank you guys for coming along to this stream this evening. Been great to have you all along, and would be great as well to have you along this weekend for the Dutch Grand Prix. Again, I'll be live Thursday at 6 p.m. UK time for the preview show for the Dutch Grand Prix, live at 6 p.m. UK time on Friday night for the qualifying preview show, then live on Saturday from 11:45 a.m. UK time through till 4:30 p.m. at least UK time. From 11:45 a.m. till 1 p.m. I'll be live for practice 3, and then from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. I'll be doing the build-up to qualifying, and then from 3 till 4 p.m. I'll be doing a watch-along for qualifying, and then for about half an hour at least after qualifying finishes, I'll be doing a reaction to qualifying with you guys. And then for the race on Sunday, I'll be live from 12 p.m. UK time starting, and I'll be going through all the way till probably 4:35 p.m. UK time. From 12 to 1:30, I'll be doing a build-up to the race, a race preview. Then 1:30 till 4 p.m. UK time will be the race watch-along. 2 p.m. UK time is officially the race start at in Holland, sorry. And then from about an hour after the race finishes, I'll be live to react with you guys to the events of the Dutch Grand Prix. So don't forget to join me for that. And as well, if you were not able to join me for the main topic of tonight's stream, how Verstappen and Red Bull destroyed Ferrari, I will be uploading that part of the stream that I recorded this evening. I will upload that as a recorded video tomorrow, so make sure to check that out if you were unable to catch all of it or any of it at all. So yeah, that's the plan for content this week, and hopefully you guys will check that all out. And again, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. For everyone watching still, if you haven't already, don't forget to smash the like button on this video, and as well share this video and channel everywhere you can to help the channel grow. And don't forget as well to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5, and don't forget as well to join my Discord server, link below in the description. And also check out some of my recorded videos on my channel. Go to my homepage and I'm sure there'll be some recorded videos from a week or two ago or even 3 weeks ago that you guys will be interested in checking out, such as my Carlos Sainz video, Alonso Alpine video, Lando Norris video. So make sure to go check that out as well. But guys, cheers for tonight, and cheers for the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, or the entire coverage, I guess you could say, as a whole. Cheers for joining me for that, and hopefully I'll see you guys on Thursday for the preview and the Dutch Grand Prix. Until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.